I was one of those first guys that paid $400 for Google Earth when you had to buy it. People say e-scouting, but it's not really e-scouting. In several examples I show in this course, the Google Earth image is different than the Gaia image, is different than the OnX image, and is different than the base map. You know, in OnX you can click on it to get more information about the road. You wouldn't believe the information that's available in this camel file. Guys, I'm telling you right now, all these elk finding features, I've seen elk in places they should not be. I want to take it from beginning to end. I don't want to just talk about how great fires are for elk or how great beetle kills are for elk. I want to talk about how they all work together. This is Mark Livesay with Treeline Pursuits, and you're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Put down your latte and pull on your boots.
I've been blessed to harvest 22 of the 29 North American animals with my bow.
My personal 24-hour record for death threats is 88.
They will start putting two and two together and realize this is how you call bulls in.
So when I go hunting now, that's the ethos I take with me. You know, whatever this hunter's going to throw at you, you pull your big girl pants up and you get on with it.
Giant bucks are freaking awesome. They're beautiful. But you know what? I would not trade this first buck for anything in the world.
So I'm a geek. Magicians and dragons and magic swords. I shit you not, man. I'm the biggest dork in the gun business.
I'm Freddie Hartice, the Hollywood Hunter.
This is Aaron Snyder.
Hey, this is Trevin Stoltzfus with Outback Outdoors.
This is Rihanna Carey.
Hi, this is John Sloan of the Interviews with the Hunting Masters.
You're listening to The Wild Initiative.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of The Wild Initiative as part of the Waypoint Outdoor Collective. So, getting on to today's episode, I am out here at Western Hunting Summit. We are at Big Sky Archery, just in Bozeman, Montana. I'm sitting down with Mark Livesay of Treeline Pursuits, Treeline Academy, and I've been familiar with Mark for a while, and I've been meaning to reach out to him, especially coming up to Western Hunting Summit, and lo and behold, I checked Instagram a couple weeks back to a message saying, hey, you know, my name's Mark. I run this e-scouting course, and I wanted to talk to you on the podcast. I'm like, well,
it wasn't quite
what a
coincidence.
coincidence.
Told me to call you. So.
Okay. I didn't know that, but I couldn't tell you why. I don't know. I crashed on his in his guest room for a good week straight when I jacked up my ankle during hunting season. So, well, I'd met Ryan. I think I met him originally through Corey Jacobson. And then, I mean, it's like, how do you meet anyone in the hunting industry at this point? You know, it's kind of, so I think I met him through Corey Jacobson one year. Then the next year we kind of started chatting about something. And then they found out I did websites, and then I think Cody Rich told them to call me to work on the website for Western Hunting Summit, and it was a whole mishmash of things, and then suddenly I ended up sleeping in their guest room. And
well, that's the way it goes.
Oh yeah, it's funny. I was talking with I can't remember who I was talking with about this, but it's the whole thing of like, suddenly you realize, like, you've invited someone to come, like, crash on your couch, and you realize, like, I've never actually met this person before. And you're like, I should feel sketched out about this, but I really don't. And you know, I don't know why.
The way we communicate now, the social media stuff, and the way we kind of get to know each other, even almost like, even Brian, and Ryan, too, all these guys that I met, too, I felt like I knew him before I actually shook hands with him. I mean, if shaking hands is a thing anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are we allowed to do that? I don't know.
It is a dynamic that is a little hard to get used to, but yeah, we're here at the summit, second year. I really love this thing.
It's awesome. I mean, you know, I've been kind of running around taking photos and working a little bit, but just listening in on the presentations, all the different speakers, I mean, the value you get, you know, and it's funny because from my perspective, I've met a lot of these people, and they've become friends, acquaintances. I'm used to being around them, and I forget, like, the epic level of knowledge contained in these heads. It's absolutely insane. And, you know, I'll be going up on the mountain next week for the Mule Deer Summit. I wasn't able to go up for the Elk Summit. But, you know, just what I've heard from that, and like I said, this is first day of the kind of classroom sessions, and it's already been so just
so next week
out there.
with the Mule Deer Summit, you guys are going to be slumming it because you guys won't have llamas. So you guys are going to be slumping your own food up there.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't know about that. I don't. But you will be actually speaking as of the day we're recording this. Right. You'll be speaking tomorrow. You'll be presenting, talking about. Will you be doing your e-scouting? Okay. And so I definitely want to get into that because we are, it's
June.
At that point where, it's June. Yeah. Elk season's coming. And people, may have done a little bit of e-scouting looking for your units right now, especially if you don't live in state. But it's time, man. You gotta pick where you're driving in. You gotta pick the ridges you're gonna be looking off of. And so I want to get into that. But one thing I always like to start out with first is, this podcast is really a lot about introducing folks to the outdoors, people without a huge background or a knowledge of the outdoors. So I always love to hear how you got your introduction to hunting and all of this.
Which is kind of refreshing because that's usually we dive right into the whatever the topic is. But I grew up in Missouri and grew up hunting whitetails from about, I think I killed my first whitetail when I was 10 with a 30-pound recurve bow that really was not. It was really hard for me to even handle that. And that was really the moment I was kind of hooked on it. I have a brother that's a year apart, and we were inseparable when it came to hunting. And we just, hunted our little hearts out. And then it might, kind of fast forward. When I was in my 20s, I decided that I had this bug to go west to hunt elk. And, I always say there's two kinds of archery people. There's people that will take the risk and and go elk hunting, and the ones that kind of dream of it. And, for archery hunting, there's a lot, and I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers, but, archery elk hunting is just like, I don't know, there's something very magical about it. And with the rutting and the bugling and just the interactions that you get to have. So anyway, I watched, like everyone when I grew up, the Primos videos were all popular then. And so I had this bug. And so in my 20s, I decided that we were going to do it. And my first elk hunt was a disaster. We went in a minivan, a 2-wheel drive minivan. We lost all the hubcaps. And it was crazy. I ended up killing an elk, which was a miracle. It was a cow, just because she walked right to me. I mean, there was no expertise involved. And when she first was walking towards me in the woods, she had a calf with her, and I thought it was a horse loose. I'd never seen an elk in the wild, ever. And then I was hooked. I was really just hook, line, and sinker. And I haven't missed an elk hunting season since then for 32 years. So,
wow.
I spent most of my years, obviously, driving from Missouri to the Midwest to hunt elk for all those years, a couple decades plus. And so I have a real passion for beginners. I have a real passion for do-it-yourself public land. I've only been on one kind of quasi-guided trip. I did a drop camp one time for elk, and I didn't even like that. I like to do things and experience them on my own terms. And I know we're going to get into it, but a lot of that is the same with e-scouting. I've worked really hard over 30 years to refine my techniques and using all the tools as they became available. And I'm kind of in a unique situation because I have been going so long that I was one of those first guys that paid $400 for Google Earth when you had to buy it. It was $400, and that in the 90s. That's it came out in early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
And if you think about that, in the early 2000s, that wasn't that long ago. It just the progression of technology in the short period of time. I think we lose track. We've kind of almost forgotten. Like cell phones haven't been around that. I mean, all these things that we take for granted now haven't been around all that long. So, anyway, to kind of get back to that, so I have this progression of e-scouting, so to speak, from topographic maps checked out at the library, ordering National Forest maps in the crude states that they were back then, and then trying to go and look at topographic maps, and then trying to figure out places to drive out from the west. You got 7-10 days trying to make it happen. It's a miracle we even killed elk back then. And it's coming from the east. But it was just, I love the whole process about it. The hunting part, the planning part, the execution part. I just loved it. And so, through my 20s, I played college football, played high school football, played rugby. I was a real contact sport kind of guy. And then, into my late 20s, I started doing triathlons. And I couldn't even swim when I started. I told the story. I was on a podcast with Brian, with Gritty Bowman, and I couldn't even swim across the pool when I started doing triathlon, but I signed up for an Ironman my first year. So one of the things about me that I'll say real quick is I'm kind of an all-in guy. My wife always makes fun of me because I'm either all in it or I am all out of it. So when I got into triathlon, I raced for about 15 years, 12 to 15 years in that range, did 11 Ironmans. And then in 2007, I did an Ironman at Coeur d'Alene, and that's what kind of got me introduced to this area of Montana. We live in Missoula, Montana now, but we loved this area then. But that was when I raced that last Ironman in 2007. I haven't done a triathlon since, so I was all out at that point. And then my elk bug. Now the elk I've never been out of, but that's when I turned up the notch for elk hunting. That's when I started really hunting a lot of days, making multiple trips a year, seeking multiple tags a year, and just really trying to hunt elk in every environment that I could hunt them in. And so that, again, goes back to the e-scouting. There's no way I could do it on that kind of level if I didn't figure out a way to look at I couldn't visit these places. No way. And so trying to come up with some systems and some techniques and some applications that I could use and how to use them and have some success. And so, just refined that system. And so after my triathlon career, I kind of immersed myself in my business and my entrepreneurship, and I ramped up my elk hunting. And then my business kind of got to the point, I own an event company called Ultramax Sports, and we produce marathons and triathlons. So kind of one of those things where I got into the business because I love triathlon, but it almost drove me out of the racing world. So in the hunting business, my wife has already told me, she's warned me, she goes, now, Mark, you're not going to repeat the same mistake, right? You're not going to get into the hunting industry and it really ruin your passion. So I'm really protective of that. So this e-scouting course is really my first kind of venture into the entrepreneurship of hunting. So if you want to call it that. But I'm very protective of that. So I've kind of semi-retired. And in 2016, my business was doing okay, but I was working crazy. 100 hours a week. It was just crazy. My company was doing 200 events a year. We're 7 days a week. It was brutal. My fitness was deteriorating. I quit racing. I was getting out of shape. I was just, in the event world, we're getting up at midnight, 1 o'clock. Oh, yeah. We're eating convenient. You do festivals, yeah. Right? So we're living.
You just got out of the festival industry, so I know exactly what you mean.
We're drinking energy drinks We're not drinking water.
Typically, energy drinks supplied, some crappy ones supplied by a sponsor, not even like a good one.
And when I first started, Red Bull was like everywhere in the event business. And then Monster came up, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's funny to talk to you because you kind of know the pain of that. And, well, your lifestyle's terrible. You're just not getting any sleep. So anyway, my wife one day said, honey, we're selling our businesses off. We own running stores too. She goes, we're selling all the running stores. I want you to streamline your business. I want you to get a CEO. We're packing up and we're moving west. So you can do what you want to do for a while. I'm like,
so how do I meet a woman like that?
Well,
a woman like that? Let's just. I'm gonna need some advice on that. We'll talk after the podcast.
So my wife. She's a dream. Let's just be honest. Especially you don't even know the half of it yet. So she said, we were on a ski trip. We were coming back from a ski trip. And we were having marital problems too because I was working so much. Everything was we had young children. I'm 54. She's 45-ish. That's what happens when you get younger and then they want to have kids. She wasn't supposed to be able to have kids. She was a cancer survivor. And all of a sudden she's pregnant. I'm like, whoa, that's weird. And then all of a sudden we got 2 and I'm 50 or getting close to 50. And I'm like, okay. So I kind of started my life over again. I had a chance to almost redeem myself, so to speak. So anyway, she said, 1 year. You have 1 year to get it under control. And I kind of took her serious, but I really didn't. So a few months into it, she finally says to me, so where are you at on this, 1 year thing? We're leaving March 18. I said, you're serious, right? No, I'm ready to book a trip. Let's head out. We were going to go to Colorado. We were planning to move to Colorado. We have a condo there and stuff, and we were going to move there. And last minute, I was on Google. I just looking at states I haven't elk hunted yet. And I'm like, I really want to elk hunt Montana. Why don't we go visit Montana? So we jumped on a plane, flew to Bozeman, made the circuit, hit Bozeman, Missoula, all the cities. And we got to Missoula, and we're like, this is it. So 1 year on the day, we packed up. We sold everything we owned. We moved out here, our whole family, in a 26-foot box truck, never looked back. And now I'm in the elk hunting mecca, and I'm able to hunt like crazy numbers of days. And my wife is so supportive. My kids are involved. We have pack llamas now. We're in it. We're in it to win it. And we're living the dream. I keep waiting for something to happen, and maybe it will. But that's just the way it is. That's God's plan. So we'll let it be what it is. But for the time being, I'm really, really enjoying myself. And so now to kind of give a little more background. So I am an addict when it comes to hunting new places. I was telling Brian earlier, I don't think I've hunted on one hand. I don't think I've been to the same place more than 5 times. Now, not the same place 5 times. I'm talking repeat places 5 times. There's so many places. And it's just, I know I could have more success than I do, and I'm pretty successful if I just tried to develop places. So I want to be clear. I know we're going to talk about e-scouting, and I have a passion for new places, but I am not dissing anyone that goes back to the places they've really, there's a lot of value in figuring out. And you heard Brian Barney speak this morning. He's really into developing a place and really understanding it and have repeatable results. There's a lot of value in that. That's just not my gig. And maybe when I get older, I don't know, it might be, but I love new places. So I know this is a long-winded introduction, but it kind of gets us going into here. But
No.
So now here we are. So I moved to Montana in 2016, and I've got a very understanding wife, as you know, and she understands that. Well, here's the thing. You got to remember, I work 7 days a week. I was gone every weekend, year-round. So now when I go to her and say, I'm going to be gone, baby, I'm leaving. Like this year I told her, I have 6 elk tags, and I'm leaving about August 25th, and I probably won't get back till about October 23rd or 4th. I say, I want you guys to meet me a couple places, and we're going to camp, and they're going to pack in with me a couple of days on a couple hunts, my son and her. But, yeah, I won't be home probably for a month. I'll stay gone for probably close to 2 months, and little checks in here and there. But she's totally good. She loves it. And you know, there's almost some empowering to it, too. And this is not for everybody. This is not for everybody, and I'm not endorsing it, and I don't think all wives should be like this, and I don't think all husbands should be like this. You got to do what works for you. And but for us, it almost like re-energizes us. We appreciate each other more when we're apart, and we cherish our time, and that's just it. So that's where we're at.
Well, the time you have together is of a higher quality than it comes down to, okay, yeah, you may be gone for a couple of months, but when you have that quality time together, it used to be, you may have seen her a little more often on a more of a regular basis, but were you really spending time with her?
Oh, what I forgot to admit is, I'm gone those 2 months, but I don't work. So I'm home. I'm at our house every day, all day, and we homeschool our kids. So I'm with my family 7 days a week, 300, well, not 300, whatever, however many days, minus a couple months. But they do come a lot. I mean, we meet to camp. I'll come out for a few days, and we'll go into town and eat some food. We'll meet up. They go in on a couple hunts with me. My wife's starting archery hunting now. She kind of goes mainly because she just wants to hang out in there. She loves the backcountry. She packs on her own with the llamas. She camps with the kids on her own. It almost has empowered her to be completely self-sufficient. And it's been she was no outdoor experience, not an outdoors woman, certainly not a hunter, nothing to do with it. Didn't know where her meat come from. Doesn't know anything about it. And now she's in it, like in every level. So it's been really great. And I wish everybody could experience it. But I had to pay my dues. I don't want anyone to think I got here easy. It was a I put my time in. And this COVID thing has been really rough. I'll be honest with you. Everybody knows about that, obviously, and I'm in the event business, so do the math. We haven't had a single event since January, and it's a little brutal for the company, and my employees it's difficult, but like everyone else, we'll persevere, and it'll be what it's going to be. Yeah, and here we are at the Western Hunting Summit now.
Yes, and we weren't sure this was going to happen for a while.
Yeah, well, we had to cancel the first one.
We had to cancel the first elk one.
And combine them, yeah.
Well, yeah, we combined them, and it worked out. A lot of people ended up needing to move to next year and dealing with all that. So, we got a solid group of men and women here learning. And
isn't it exciting to see all the levels of ability, like from
it's amazing.
Very beginners to pretty serious?
Well, and backgrounds and just types of people, and everyone is such a variety of people, and that's
what blows my mind.
amazing.
Is this is not a cheap thing to come to. Let's just be honest. But the speakers you just can't. You couldn't put this together. There's some talent in the room, minus myself. Now and but we got like 6 repeats. We got guys that are back here.
Oh yeah,
from last year, and that. I don't know what else.
And there's a ton more at the Mule Deer Summit, too, that are coming back from last year.
And I don't even know what more needs to be said. When you're coming to a summit that you went to the year before, now, obviously, some of the presentations are different and everything, but and some of the topics are different. But, man, that's a testimony to what Ryan and you have helped do. And so I applaud you guys, and I'm honored to be here. Well, it is an amazing event, like really. I'm just the web and marketing guy. I don't lay any claim to organizing this. That all falls squarely on the Lampers' shoulders, and they've done an amazing thing. Well, probably more squarely on Hillary. If we're just going to be truthful about it. Anyway, I love the Lampers, and so Hillary's another great example. I know we need to get into East, but. Look at that partnership they have. Mm-hmm. She doesn't. She's a girly girl. Let's just be honest. The girl's got nails and rhinestones, and her daughters do. He's got 2 daughters that are total girl.
Albeit she has been complaining all weekend about the nails because her daughter insisted to put them on her, and she's like, I can't do anything. The point is, she gets out there, she's shooting her bow. She's out there doing the workout right now with all the other guys. Yeah, our lazy fat asses are sitting up here recording a podcast.
Yeah, we can't work out. We got an important podcast to do. So, but anyway, it's been a real honor to meet them and become friends with them, and our families have met, and they moved from Washington to Montana. Mm-hmm. I was a little worried about that. That meant a lot less elk for me.
Yeah. Ryan Lampers moving into town.
When it's never good for you as an elk hunter if Ryan Lampers moves to your state. And so I've tried to steer him off my spots every chance I can. And but anyway, I've really enjoyed meeting them. It's been a real pleasure.
All right, well, enough of this love fest.
Yes.
However much I could sit and talk about all of the wonderful people, but we're here to talk about you, and you're
me.
You're
We're
okay.
Here to talk about how to find out.
One thing, e-scouting is a huge thing for me, especially because I live in California. We have some amazing hunting in California, but my passion from day one has been elk hunting. Yeah. I fell in love with it. I fell into the trap, the romantic, bow hunting an elk trap that so many people fall into. The mountains, the whole thing. I took it hook, line, and sinker. And, we have elk in California. We have a lot of elk. Drawing an elk tag is a whole different story. But, it's one of those things. So I do some hunting in California, but I have the option to get out and actually do physical scouting and check out locations, things like that, a lot more easily. But, when it comes to hunting elk, I rely heavily on this. And, I have more freedom now that I'm running my own business full time, where I can take trips like this. I can come to Montana for 2.5 weeks for events and still be able to work. But e-scouting has always been just a huge part of my hunting experience because, I can't just spend a weekend and come out and check out different areas. And so I'm very excited to really get into depth on this topic. But one thing, a lot of people I feel like it's cheating. It's just not it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. But something you said earlier when we first started talking was you kind of almost referenced it as like, I've been e-scouting for a long time from the time I was going to the library to pick up topographical maps. I'm like, this has been going on for a long, long time.
And people say e-scouting, the word, and I know I use it too.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not really e-scouting. If when we start getting into my course and we start talking about over half the course, well, that's not true. 1/3 of the course has nothing to do with the computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting ready to use the computer. And I think that's one of the big mistakes, traps people fall into. They just turn their computer on and they just start throwing random waypoints down and they start looking at areas. They just start flying around and trying to, whatever, see the big picture if they want to call it, whatever you want to call it. And that's fine. And there can be you can have successes with that. And you're going to stumble across some nuggets here and there. But I think the better you understand your limitations, the better you understand the realities, the better you understand about how to set your hunt parameters, which we might talk about, the better you understand the technology tools that you're actually using. Not just maybe the point of turning it on and throwing down a few waypoints, but really understanding how the offline environment works and being able to test it and verify. Because, we've got very limited amount of time to elk hunt. It's precious. I just don't want to waste it.
Mm-hmm.
So this e-scouting I call it's more of a hunt planning than it is e-scouting. And this planning your hunt in a methodical, very organized, very structured approach increases your odds of finding more elk exponentially, in my opinion. But number two, you heard it was Cody talking about effectiveness and efficiency. And so I feel like if I'm going to hunt elk this year in 5 states and I'm going to try to do it in the course of 2 months, I have to be, and I'm 54. I get pretty good shape by the time elk season rolls around, and I've got llamas, so I've got some, but you still got to go up there and get them.
Oh, yeah.
I can't afford to be inefficient to the point of ridiculousness. There's always some, but I got to go in there ready to go. And I got to put myself in places that I've got a real good chance of finding elk. Not just running around the woods like Brian Barney, because he's super fit. The dude can cover mountain range in a day.
Oh, I've gone up the mountain with him after elk, and that was me going, Brian.
Yeah. But that dude can literally run the elk down.
Oh, it's insane.
And so now he not only does he do that, but he's a great e-scouter. So he's got double whammy. The dude's a badass on a couple levels. So, but anyway, so this process is what I've been using all these years, but it's been a work in progress. Like I said, I started out with topographic maps checked out by that stacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used those and I'd take photocopies and I'd use duct tape to try to waterproof them. And a few months ago, Cody and I were talking about this, Cody Rich and I found a shoebox. I found some rolled up of some of these old maps I had for New Mexico. And I drew the same tag in New Mexico, and that was what was ironic about it. I just drew the same tag. It's been 21 years since I drew this tag. And to see those old, the last time I hunted this unit was with not duct tape, but packing tape covered topographic maps with permanent markers with stuff marked on it.
That's awesome.
So it's going to be exciting to go back and try it like with a new flair. But so that kind of got me up to now is that, so for the past 30 years, it's been a progression of improvements and refinements. And then I got to the point 2 years ago where I decided when I first moved out here, I started Treeline Pursuits and I was renting llamas and I started raising pack llamas. I'm really big into dehydrating my own food and doing my own meat. So I've done quite a few YouTube videos on that. I've written several articles for Go Hunt and other places. And I've just kind of enjoyed that, sharing some of my knowledge. But I always wanted to do something with this e-scouting. So I started recording some YouTube things. And it wasn't very long, and people started messaging me saying, dude, I love these long YouTube things, but it'd be great if it was in a course format. I don't remember even who told me. Some random message. I'm like, it just struck with me. I'm like, I need to reverse engineer everything I use. And not that I'm excellent at it. I'm certainly not the best. But I think I'm pretty good with technology. I got an IT background. And so coupling that with the techniques that I use, I think that I'm like, you know what? I am going to dedicate a couple of years to developing this. And so for the past 2 years, I've been working on it. I started down the YouTube route, and then I decided there was too much content. It had to be better organized. So that's how I ended up with the online course format. So, yeah, that's how it ended up, going that path. And then I spoke last year at this summit. And that was the impetus of the course. The feedback was incredible. I couldn't believe it. I was so humbled. Ryan said, dude, you were the number 1 rated speaker. They did a survey thing. And I'm like, really? I'm like, and I spoke for like an hour and a half. I thought, man, I just got up there and just just talked and went over everything. This year, I'm 2 hours tomorrow. I'm a little nervous about it. And so that really kicked off my real hardcore desire to finish this course. So I spent a whole year hardcore. And then COVID actually hurt me in some regards, but helped me with the course. Gave me a lot of free time between January to finish up some modules. The course is not completely finished yet. There's about 20 modules online. There's still about 5 more to go. But my membership plan is it's a 2-year subscription. I decided I wanted to give everyone 2 elk seasons of this information so that they could really work at it. And so, but the 2 years is not starting. I decided I'm not even starting the 2 years for anybody that signs up, whether they sign up now or whenever, until I finish. So it starts, the clock quote starts ticking when I finish the last module.
So effectively, if people are signing up now, they're getting
2.5 years or whatever.
However much extra time.
It doesn't matter. Honestly, the only reason it's 2 years, to be totally honest, I'm not trying to make this into a subscription. This is not an annual thing. This is a one-time deal. And, but what I'm trying to do is, with this course, I had to set it the way the course works. I had to set an expiration date. So the platform that I'm using kind of forced me into that, the way it manages memberships and everything. So that's it. And, I really didn't ever plan on being a business. I wanted to just do it. And then when I started doing it, I'm like, it took me 2 years. I said, and I had to buy a bunch of technology. I said, I got to, charge something for it. And so we started doing, and it's been great. It's only been open a month and a half, and it's been phenomenal. I have done no marketing yet, other than through podcasts and Ryan and just the thousands of questions that I've gotten. It's obvious to me, like you just said, there's a lot of people out there with a passion for finding elk. They spend so much money on their bows, non-resident tags. You know what those cost?
Oh yeah, and
just all this stuff, that's the investment that you got to make, and the sacrifice and the time and the vacation and the time away from your family. I love hearing Dan. He said his whole life revolves around elk. It's just elk shape, and Dan Staten, the way he talks about the passion he has for elk hunting. I have that same passion, maybe not quite as crazy as him, but I don't want to waste any time. And I want to hit the ground running. I want to spend my time hunting. I don't want to spend my time scratching my head. I certainly don't want to spend my time in places that don't have elk. So my plan is to go into an area, hunt it. If there's no elk, I'm moving to plan B immediately. That's always been my approach. So having 3 to 5 of those plans, I call them hunt areas. So the hunt plan is your overall plan. And then your hunt areas are 3 to 5 of those areas that you could immediately move to. Cross the unit, different mountain range, depending on the state and what tag you got and all of that. But another hunt area is not just picking up your camp, moving down the trail a mile or 2. That's not a new hunt area. Because you know what can happen. The road, I'll talk about this tomorrow. I've had 2 cases in my elk hunting career. Did all this work. I loved this spot, and the road was washed out or collapsed. Didn't know it. Wasn't on the motor vehicle. Couldn't find it anywhere. Get there with a sign, says road closed. We're like, what? We're 10 miles from our spot. Well, we had to go to plan B. Well, the first time it happened to me, I didn't really have a plan B. I literally had to drive back into town, get cell service, and redo my offline maps and, stuff like that. In my earlier years, we never even dreamed of a separate. We just went into an area and that's all we had. We had 7 days. You had to commit. So I guess what I'm saying, if you got 7 days to hunt, you may not need 5 hunt areas because you can't move 5 times. But if you got 10 days, you might want 3 or 4. And there's a lot of other reasons for having hunt areas. I know you're going to probably have some questions for me, but not only like access issues, not only backup, no elk, there could be too much hunting pressure. There could be a fire that pops up in the West, man. I mean, one day your unit looks great, next minute it's burnt to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened to me. Now, it wasn't an area that I've planned on hunting, but one of my hunt areas a couple of years ago burnt before the season. And now I'm going back to it. So think of the work. So I did all that work. This is just kind of a rabbit hole, but I did all that e-scouting work for this area. Now it's 2 years after this fire. I'm ready to go in there. It's going to be prime time. It's probably going to be on my list this year. And so hunt planning, hunt areas, and then using your tools to develop those. So it's not, Brian Call asked me, what separates your course from like Elk 101 or maybe some of the stuff that Randy puts out, which I love Randy. He just got through speaking here a few hours ago. I think the difference is that I want to take it from beginning to end. I don't want to just talk about how great fires are for elk, or how great beetle kills are for elk, or how great north slopes are for elk, or how great wide bottom canyons with interspersed meadows are for elk. I don't want to talk about how elk they really love that 15 to 25 degree slope. I want to talk about how they all work together. I want to talk about how to find clusters of those elk, I call them elk finding features. And the approach on this course is all about increasing your odds. It's odds multipliers. I call them odds multipliers. So for example, you find a great looking north slope, okay? You love it. And then you start finding benches that are halfway to 3/4 of the way up. That's good. That's another elk finding feature. I like it. Elk love benches. And then I see the bottom of that little canyon doesn't have a trail in, doesn't have an established trail. Freaking that's gold for me. And then I see that it's flat bottom. It's not a V bottom. You know what I mean? A real steep bottom.
Yeah.
So the flat bottom means it's going to hold moisture, which means there's going to be a lot of food in the bottom. And then I start seeing interspersed meadows. Those are positives. And then up on the ridge lines, I see some saddles that connect another drainage. And then the orientation of this drainage is a spoon basin, which is my favorite, but it's a north-facing spoon drainage. When you find places that have all those things I just mentioned, you're looking good, and if you can put some of those with a few other little features, maybe even throw in a nice little beetle kill spot. But what I'm trying to make here is once you mark these points, and I know it's kind of hard to explain here, but you're going to start seeing these clusters. Mm-hmm. And when you start seeing these clusters, then you could start really zeroing in on what you're looking at. And I find a lot of guys that they get caught up on north slopes as their thing. They just love to hunt elk on the north slope. But I feel personally that there are other factors that could complement. I love north slopes too. I'm mainly talking archery too, sorry. But I love being on the north slopes. That doesn't mean elk aren't on the south, east, or west. It's an odds thing. If you're going to roll the dice and you got one slope to pick and it's archery season, pick the north. That doesn't mean ignore the other slopes. I hope that makes sense. But
yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of the approach. I don't know if that makes sense but that's kind of the approach.
So coming into this, I maybe I'm just going over the counter. Maybe so let's take my very first hunt. I still laugh about this, and everyone listening that's been listening for a while is going to go, oh yeah, his first hunt. Yeah. My first hunt, over the counter, solo archery elk hunt, public land, Idaho, because I'm smart like that.
Yeah, that's aggressive.
But so coming into that, I've got a choice of several units. It's over the counter, so I can choose from several units, and so I'm going in there, and for all I know is I'm like, okay, well, put the little overlay for the Idaho unit breakdown, and Idaho's really big. There's a lot of woods here in Idaho. Well, shoot, like where do you even start?
Well, man, so if you think back what I just said, I know I rattled those off, and I know it was quick, but those features, it's learning where elk want to be. Like Dan said it. Dan said, I know I'm kind of referring to some, and nobody's on this, but Dan Staten with Elk Shape. I just love this guy because his approach, he's so passionate, and it's contagious. But one of the things that he said during presentation today made sense to me, and I'm going to mention it tomorrow, was that he used to hunt elk based on his fitness. Kind of like what I mentioned about Brian. He just relied on his extreme fitness to kill elk, and he killed a lot of elk. But now he is learning, and we've talked a lot about this, where finding where the elk want to be and getting more dialed on that makes it, I don't want to say it makes elk hunting easy, because elk hunting is never easy. Let's just be honest. You can say, I know I kind of laugh a lot about my course. I say, hunt smarter, not harder. But that's kind of a lie, because I don't care how well you got your spot dialed in, the places where elk want to live are never going to be easy. And that's part of it. Part of it is really looking for the places that are hard, kind of, not always. But so anyway, to start from the beginning, like you just said, it really is a process. I mean, there's no way to cover it all here today, but if you work the steps, and you, because the way we kind of do it, the way I kind of do it is, the first thing is understanding realities and limitations, and really understanding what your style, solo, like you said, are you going to backpack hunt? Are you going to car camp? What's your hiking capabilities? What's your hiking capabilities with 130 pounds on your back? Mm-hmm. That's a different capability. Coming to realization, if you do kill an elk, you got to get the thing out. If it's archery season, if it's 70 degrees, I mean, what's your situation? I mean, what's your capabilities? What's your endurance levels? Really understanding that, and really not exaggerating it either. Because let me just say this. You can kill elk at every ability level if you accept your level and you work within your level. Where you start not killing elk is when you get outside of your ability level and you ruin yourself and you get dejected and you can't physically maintain the ability to hunt, and you lose mental focus, all the things that go into it. So first is grasping this reality and setting up what I call your hunt parameter. What is my distance, my maximum distance? Now, distance is not, you got to be careful saying that word, because 5 miles in Kansas is not 5 miles in Idaho. So, and 5 miles in Idaho is not 5 miles in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. So, with it, keeping in fact the terrain you're going to be. So setting those up. Now that you know what you kind of can do and what you're going to be comfortable with, that's when you start kind of looking for areas that you want to hunt. And how I first do it, I call it establishing the zones of pressure. It's one of the first modules. It's not the first module in the course, but one of the first e-scouting modules. I don't do that digitally. That's one of those processes where I do it with National Forest maps. And I'm going to make this really fast because I know we want to ask some more questions, but I want to know where the pressure's coming from. I want to know every road that's open to motor vehicle access. I want to know every dead end. I want to know every campground. I want to know every legitimate access point, and I want to study them before I do anything. So let's say I've got unit X. I will take the entire unit. I will trace that entire unit border with a permanent marker based off the regs onto my National Forest map. Some of them have the units now in some states, but I trace that unit. So I've got my defined outer boundary, so to speak. And then I will go back and I will trace every open road. Well, how you find out if the road's open, you have to access the motor vehicle use maps online. You have to look at OnX. You have to compare the two because they can be wrong. So you can't just rely on one solution. You can look at Gaia, you can look at OnX, you can look at the best, most reliable way, which is real cryptic, is to download the motor vehicle use PDF maps, have them right beside your National Forest map, and translate the roads onto your National Forest map. So once you do that, you outline all those roads in a certain color. That's what I do. I have a color scheme I use. It doesn't matter the color scheme as long as you get one. And I mark all open roads, okay? Then I take a piece of cardboard. I know this sounds crazy. I will cut a 1 mile, a 2 mile, and a 3 mile radius. And I will punch a hole in the middle so I can see. Mm-hmm. I will lay that over every trailhead, every dead end, every campground, and any place else that I identify as I think this is a significant pressure point, and I will draw a circle. I do a 2-mile circle. For guys that are hunting from trucks or camps and doing, maybe it's a 1 mile. Again, it kind of bases on your limitations we talked about.
Yeah. Doesn't
matter as long as it's a system. So let's say 2 miles, circle the 2 miles. Then a lot of times, if it's a super roaded area, like there's a lot of roads, I won't always do this because it gets too jumbly. But if it's a more moderately roaded area, I will take a compass, just an old school elementary pencil compass, and I will set that to 1 mile, and I'll screw it down, and I will do all the roads, both sides, 1 mile, and then I will shade them in. I know this takes time, but let me tell you, when you take your national forest map and you do that, and you start seeing what's left, you haven't looked at a single terrain yet, okay? Remember, nothing. And you're like, things just start to pop out. You're like, oh, look at this little area over here. It's only, a mile from the road, but there's no other way in, and there's no shading in here. There's no road. There's no overlapping circles from all those things I told you. Then I open up Google. That's when I open up Google Earth. I kind of always go with Google Earth and the initial phases because I like the tilt and the zoom and the image quality. There's a lot of things about Google Earth I like for this original, what I call this flyover stage or this analytical kind of just figuring out I'm just trying to learn my unit or learn my area. I think what you're getting here is I spend an enormous amount of time learning the area. And let me tell you one more thing. When you trace these roads, okay, and you outline that unit and you circle those campgrounds, you don't realize the historical knowledge that you're banking. You're learning the road names. You're learning the access points. You're learning you really are starting to amass a set of knowledge for that area. I call that historical knowledge. And it's kind of hard to replicate that. There's really no other way with no boots on the ground. But when you get on site and you're driving around and you're these roads and these mountain, they're almost familiar with you if you take this approach. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're getting intimately familiar with the area before you ever put boots on the ground. And so I feel like that's just, you've got a leg up on everybody else in that unit that's hunting that. You've automatically got a leg up. You're miles in. And like I just said, you've just increased your odds. You haven't found a single elk finding feature. You've done nothing more than you know where every parking spot is. And we were talking about this earlier. So many guys will invest in a spot and they pack in. I've done it. I hate to admit this more than once. Packed in 6 miles with my llama, 7 miles, only to find out I run into a dude. I'm like, well, how did he get in here? I missed a road. I overlooked an access. That's a bummer. There's nothing more demoralizing than working your ass off to get into a place and finding out that you missed an access. So I spend an enormous amount of time on zones of pressure. I think the zones of pressure, however you do it, if you just choose to do it digitally, I choose to do it on the maps because I want to see it big.
There's something especially, it's almost hard to explain.
Right.
Because I've been a digital project manager for almost 20 years
so
at this point.
So you probably I gotta pull the map out. I'm a computer guy, but even with my projects, there's something about being able to physically hold it and really see it laid out that you just can't replicate on a digital map. Well, and
it doesn't matter.
Laying down the table, just spinning it around and orienting it, and just standing back and looking at it. And I agree.
And I really like that method because it's one of those things I feel like I've done parts of that before, or I've used tools that kind of replicate little bits of that, or I've considered pieces of it, but I've never really taken the time to sit down, consolidate all and really do all of those things. I've done each of them a little bit here and there, or maybe 2 or 3 of those pieces, but I've never really combined them all. And so you end up then, missing something.
And it can be a hunt killer.
Oh, I'll tell you, I was in Arizona. I found some great spots, and I'm sitting there. is that a station wagon?
Yeah.
And it's just going through, coming from this other direction that I never expected to see it.
Yeah, I know. It's demoralizing. What'd you think when that happened?
I'm like, I felt like, well, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, well, it's that, and it's like, but you wasted a whole, now, guys, it doesn't mean there's not going to be animals where there's vehicles. And everybody's on me about that because, not on me, but they ask me questions about that, like, guys from Oregon. I'm getting a lot. Oregon's probably my number one membership in my course right now. Oregon and Washington. I think mainly because Ryan is really an adamant promoter of my course, and he's got a big following there. But the point is, they're like, hey, we want to see a little more on areas that have tons of logging roads. And how do we deal with that? So I'm working. That's going to be add-on modules to my course. I cover that pretty extensively in the zones of pressure, but it's hard. I do a lot of case examples in this course. It's not all about just what you should be looking for. I'm actually showing it on the screen over and over and over. Like I just did the beetle kill. You'd think beetle kills. Yeah, it was an hour and a half of only how to analyze beetle kills. Beetle kills are one of my favorites. I mean, I kind of let the cat out of the bag. One of my favorite elk killing places is beetle kills when the trees are dead, but they're not on the ground. Well, that is not easy to figure out. Everyone's like, well, just look at Google Earth. I'm like, what if the image is 2014?
Yeah.
And then that's what is that, 7 years ago? So you roll in there, and all the trees are on the ground. I got an example that I may share in a little later, but I almost made a science out of studying beetle kills. And so this module going through the beetle kills was trying to figure out what stage these beetle kills are in. Well, if Google Earth image is 2014, you got to make some extrapolations. But then I looked at OnX. The image was way newer. Trees are on the ground. So then I started looking at Gaia. And then I started looking at base map. And not during this course, I've known this, but I want to make the point in this. The beetle kill is a great way to show it. This is why in the course, I know it costs a little extra money to have Gaia, have OnX, and whatever. I realize that. And you don't have to do it. To be a great e-scouter, you do not have to have all these platforms. But let me tell you, in several examples that I show in this course, the Google Earth image is different than the Gaia image, is different than the OnX image, and is different than the base map. How crazy is that? You would think that these would buy their data from the same places. Well, they may, but they're all different dates. And the reason I know it, because I do a lot of trailhead analysis. I study. So when I mentioned pressure, one of the things about the zones of pressure I use Google Earth for is I will zoom in on every access point. I want to see how many parking places are there. I want to see if there's horse corrals there. And I want to see, is this thing a Walmart parking lot or is it just like a pull-off spot? Because some of these things that are labeled trailheads look like freaking Walmart parking lots. And then you'll see other ones that are labeled trailheads. It doesn't even look like you can drive to them. So taking you can't do that in the field. The zoom capabilities of OnX and all these hunt platforms in the field, offline, don't give you that level of zoom. And so this is all work that has to be done at home before you go. So when I'm doing the zones of pressure and I'm marking campgrounds, I look at every campground. I know it. You're like, why would you do that? How many camping spots are there? How big is it? If it's just a 2-horse little campground, big deal. But those start to paint that picture I'm talking about, the zones of pressure. And so that's just one module. That's one of 25 in this course that just teaches you or helps teach you how to evaluate the pressure and how to work around the pressure. And everybody's like, well, Mark, I can only get a couple miles from the road. We're backpack. We can only be 3 or 4 miles. No problem. You just have to adjust your zones. But you can't be looking 10 miles in when you can only get 2 miles in. So by setting up your hunt parameter, remember we talked about that 5-mile radius, you overlay that on top of your zones of pressure and stuff starts really making sense. And then you're not wasting time e-scouting areas that you cannot reach. I just talked to a dude, I was just on a podcast recently with Eastern podcasts, guys from the East. They did all this work and they got out there. One of their guys in their group was the fitness and the altitude really affected them. They couldn't even get to any of the places that they e-scouted. So they had to resort to car camping, but no big deal. But if they had a plan for that, if they just said, hey, let's set this pie in the sky plan as our option A. And then our backup plan is base camp out of vehicle, and this is our area. But they put all their eggs in one basket. They had to pull back to the base camp. They had no offline maps. They had no waypoints, no nothing. So they spent days trying to, reconnoiter and kind of figure out the area. And they just, they on a 7 or 10 day hunt. They just wasted some days.
Well, and that brings us back to what you were saying. You go through this whole process. You lay out that map. You start detailing out those roads. You want to have that backup plan, but even if you don't have as much of a backup plan as you probably should, after you've gone through that whole process, like you said, you have that knowledge of all those roads.
You're figuring it out.
And you may not your plan A, you may not always need to go fully to plan B.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, if you're, say you got your plan A and maybe it's just a road closure. It's not, your whole plan A hasn't, there's not a fire. Yeah. It's not, there's not an avalanche, whatever, that's destroyed half of this area. Maybe it's just a road closure.
Maybe the motor vehicle use route was wrong.
Exactly.
Maybe they said June 16th and they meant to say October. What happened to me was the motor vehicle use map said it opened on June 16th, but it opened on 9/16, and we were there 9/2, and it was a mistake. Now, who do you blame? But we had Placca B. It was 25 miles down the road. I already had all the turns marked for the driving distance and everything ahead of time. Boom, we drove right to it. We almost didn't miss any hunting. Mm-hmm. But if we had to pull over and say, okay, boys, let's get the maps out. What are we going to do? Well, you've done this too. How good of a decisions and how good a judgment do you have in those situations? Terrible. When you're tired and you're demoralized and the pressure's on and you feel like your hunt is ticking away, all these things, you're dehydrated, you're low on food, your calorie intake is down, you're eating crappy Mountain House.
Hey, don't be talking down on my chili mac. That's all I got to say.
Well, I'm a big fan of the biscuits and gravy. But the point is, you don't make good judgment calls. You're like, well, let's run over here. And before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole that maybe you'll get lucky and there'll be elk and maybe there won't. But it's not a guarantee.
I never want to base my elk season on maybe I'll get lucky.
That's right.
I've based a lot of my elk seasons on maybe I'll get lucky.
And a lot of people do. And another thing people do, which there's nothing wrong with it, is they find a place that they have some moderate success with and they never leave because they know it. They're comfortable. And they don't want to risk going somewhere else. And I just want to tell people, like, through your podcast, I just want to be like, man, there's a big world out there. And a lot of it has elk. Get out, do it. Get out there and develop some new places. And I can't tell you how much thrill I get packing in the middle of the night. We get to our camp. We ain't even got our tent set up and a bugle.
Oh, you hear that?
I'm like, buddy, you got it. And it doesn't happen every time. But one time, man, we packed into Wyoming. I had to East Scout this area 2 years ago. Never been there. Never even drove to the trailhead. Never been in the unit. Got there about 11 o'clock at night. Had to find the trailhead in the dark. Packed in pitch black. Never seen no terrain. We get the teepee up. We just laid down. It was early. It was almost morning. We only had a couple hours. And the bulls were screaming everywhere. Everywhere. And next morning was rifle season, and they were bugling. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most surreal hunts that I've been on. And I'm not saying I know where. I'm just saying what I found in this spot was the scenario I told you. I had all these elk fights. The clusters were incredible. I had all these north faces. I had these benches. I had these drainages. I had a fire. I had a 3-year-old fire, and it was green as a gourd on Google Earth in the month of September. We can talk about the historical timelines. There's all kinds of things in that. But all the things were pointing. And I said, boys, we're going in there. Sight unseen. 7 miles in. I didn't even have llamas. I didn't take my llamas on that one. And it worked out. It was incredible. And it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
But I do know one thing. I'm pretty confident saying you plan these approaches and you have multiple backup options and you have enough days to execute it, let's say at 10, good things are going to happen. May not kill an elk, but it probably won't be because you weren't given an opportunity. Other things happened, which that's hunting. But, we're kind of digressing here, but
well, you were talking, you're talking about how there's such a big world full of elk out there, and I think that's a key point that I've gotten caught into, where you get demotivated, you get discouraged, and we were talking a little bit ago. Not this last season, but the season before, I went into Colorado with a buddy who had llamas, which I think you own some of.
Yeah. We talked about that. It's possible, yeah.
But we went in, and as we were going in, we had met a couple of guys coming out, and a couple of just no BS guys. We sat and talked with them, and they're like, nothing. And we had put a lot of eggs in this basket, and we went in anyway because we got caught. I feel like we got caught into the trap of, we could go somewhere else, but what if there's no elk there? And we didn't have a plan B. That was also the problem, but it is so easy. Like, you do have these other plans, and like you said, you get really committed, or you see a modicum of success. Maybe you see a couple of cows, or you hear that bugle, and you're like, okay. But then you get worried. You're like, well, okay, we've been here 3 days, just nothing's happening. We haven't heard anything since then, but we had that little bit, so we better just stay here. Yeah. We better just stay here just in case, because we could go somewhere else and we may not hear a bugle.
You're so dialed to that, and the reality is, there's no guarantees you make a move, and making a move isn't easy. You're going to sacrifice a half a day or maybe even a full day to make a move. Depends on where you got to go.
Well, half a day out, half a day in at your next spot with driving included. That's easily
so it's a commitment. But, elk are big animals. They leave a lot of sign. They make a lot of noise in September to some degree. And you got to keep going until you find elk. You're going to have to kiss some frogs along the way. But if you're finding cows, especially in archery season, and you're just not quite locating the bulls, you got a hard decision to make. The bulls maybe not have gotten to them yet, or you're just not quite in the right spot yet. Well, look at this example. So we were up on the mountain, and they were having a elk calling contest down on the end. Not a contest, but they were doing a calling seminar on the end of the ridge. Okay, this is in the wild. Probably 1,000 yards, maybe a little more from camp. I'm in camp getting the llamas packed up, because we're getting ready to pack down. I never heard a single bugle. Now, part of it is I'm 54, and my hearing is deteriorating. I have to take my son along to hear the elk now. Not completely true, but pretty close. But, so what I'm saying is I didn't hear them. That didn't mean they weren't there, and I didn't move enough. Elk hunting success is based on stacking odds in your favor. But the second thing it's based on is, one of the other critical factors, not the only thing, but mobility, moving.
Huge.
Don't get your camp set up crazy. I know we're giving elk hunting advice here, maybe more than e-scouting, but try not to set up a super elaborate camp that you're so invested in that you don't want to move it. How many times does that happen? It happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And especially vehicle-based camps, they're really difficult to move because you start getting spread out, got the wall tent up, all this stuff. And I know those wall tents and stuff are fun, and it's a social thing. That's fine. If that's your goal, if your elk camp is as much friendship and bonding and then killing elk, then just keep doing it, because there's nothing wrong with that. But if your number one goal is to kill elk, that's your only goal in life, then you got to stay mobile and you got to go where the elk are. Now, you might get lucky throwing up a wall tent and hunting elk, but on do-it-yourself private land hunts, hunting from the road, particularly from a base camp, the odds are against you. I'm just going to be honest. They're really against you. So if they're against you, one way you can reverse that is being mobile, going out at night, doing lots of night calling, lots of night driving, lots of stopping and turning off your car, getting out, listening for 30 minutes, not 5 minutes. And don't do it right after dark. I found the elk will take a couple of hours, after the sun sets, and in a high pressure area that everybody says that bulls don't bugle in this area. Well,
That's because you're asleep by the time they're bugling.
Exactly. Or you're not out there at midnight, 1 o'clock. I would rather sacrifice my morning hunt. If I'm not finding elk, I will give up on, if I'm hunting from the road, which I don't do, but let's say I was, we're hunting from the road. We got a base camp set up. It's great. We're not running into elk. We're not finding elk, but we're going out morning and night. Stop it. Sacrifice 1 or 2 mornings. Stay out all night or most of the night. Drive the roads. Hit the dead ends. Hit the side roads. Any place you can get. You might be surprised what starts happening. And I don't mean run around just blowing your bugle tube. You don't necessarily have to try to locate them at night, although a lot of people do it. And it does work, and they will. They sometimes will respond. But sometimes I'll just sit there for a while and just relax and just listen.
Well, and also, how nice of a freaking night is that? After you've been hunting hard, you're discouraged.
Yeah, you know you're
just
sleeping
to
in.
Take a couple of, like a night or two, and because you can relax.
Well,
you can sit, and you can enjoy one of the things we all love most about hunting. Just being out there in nature, listening to the dang elk bugle.
Well, and, you know, guys think that if I'm going to kill, I got to be out there morning and night. I can't stop. And that is true if you're in them. But if you're not in them and your tactics are not working, don't be afraid to switch it up. Yep. Same with e-scouting. Work your plan, and when your plan's not producing, forget that plan. Divorce that plan. Leave that plan behind. Don't have regrets. Don't like, oh, that was my number one spot. These other spots are crap. They're not. You got to have faith. You went through the system. You did all the work. They may not be as good on paper as that, but guys, I'm telling you right now, all these elk finding features, I've seen elk in places they should not be. South slopes, no benches, super steep, V-bottom canyons. I mean, everything that I look for was not there. And there's 200 elk standing over there for summer, no food, brown as can be. Elk just sometimes just want to be where they want to be. And that's the beauty of it. Now, I do think there's things. You can stack the odds. We've talked about it. But they also will defy the odds from time to time. Have faith in your plan, work the plan, execute the plan. The other thing is when you get tired and you're worn out and you're exhausted, pulling out that written hunt plan. I'm big about the written hunt plan. I know I'm digital. E-scouting, Google Earth, Onyx, Gaia, I'm all about the technology. But I'm about the maps in the beginning. It's funny how I never thought about this. I start with the maps, and then I use all the technology, and then I finish with a written hunt plan. It's on paper, not a PDF, on paper, printed in my pack. I can't tell you how many nights, I say this all the time, but it's kind of a broken record, but I have been laying in my tent. I'm like, what the hell's going on? There should be elk here. I'm freaking dialed on that. I know what I'm doing. Where are the elk? I'll pull my hunt plan out. I'm reading down there. I'm like, oh, I forgot about this spot I looked at. Man, totally forgot about this glassing spot. I totally forgot about this drainage. I was going to go right over here. And I wrote a lot of good things about this, you know. And then I got new energy. I'm like almost renewed because I've got a plan for tomorrow. But how many nights have you been in your camp thinking, all right, what are we going to do tomorrow? We went here. Now where do we go tomorrow? I've had that conversation so many times. Like, okay, what's everybody doing? We didn't see anything today. What are you guys going to do? Well, I'm saying pull your hunt plan out. So what I recommend, just for an example, say you're doing a 7-day hunt. I do recommend 10 days for elk. I'll just be honest with you. Getting an elk on the ground, packed out, without stock, and having a productive hunt in 7 days is difficult for elk. It just is, guys. It can be done. But on a 7-day hunt, I recommend a 4-day hunt plan. 4, maybe 5, depends. And what I mean by that is there's going to be a lot of ad lib. There's going to be things that come up you're going to want to look, oh, I'm in this. But having the 5 days or 4 days planned out gives you a lot of resources to rely on. You don't have to stick to the script. I'm telling you, if you go through the process of this course and you develop that plan, you're very rarely going to have to pull it out because you've got, I say this all the time, you've got so much historical knowledge built by working this system that by the time you get out there, you rarely even have to look at it. You're going to refresh your memory. Or if you get in trouble and you're like starting to fret about it, you can kind of look and make sure you've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. But
so when you're saying hunt plan, we talked about eliminating these areas, but when you say hunt plan, you're talking about like, I got a sheet of paper. I'm like, I got my area. I've got you say 4 days. I got day 1. I'm going to check out this ridge, go out on this finger, glass this face.
Good point.
For this many hours. Like, what does that consist of?
Good question. It's funny because I've done so many you start assuming stuff. And my course is all about not assuming. So I'm glad you asked me a question. So the hunt plan, the structure of it, when I'm all done, meaning I've fleshed it all out. I kind of got an idea where I want to go. Now I reduce it to, now I will be, let's back up. I will be keeping notes all along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll be starting to see trends develop. I'll be like, I'm liking this area and these are things I like about this area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when I write the hunt plan, the way I do it is, I mean, this is so stupid simple, and it seems so ridiculous that most guys may not do it, but I'm telling you, it's powerful. I put the dates. I put my access point. I got where I'm going to park. I've got all this written out. I've got any special notes of anything related to getting there and getting out. I got all that. And then I've got day 1. I've got morning, and then I've got 3 objectives. It might be a ridge. It might be I'm going to glass that morning. It might be I'm just going to still hunt up. I'm going to check these meadows for sign. Whatever the focus is, that I will have a morning strategy. I will have a midday strategy, and midday might be napping. I mean, let's just be honest, whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. And then evening hunt is going to be this strategy. And what I do when I develop the strategy is I've got these waypoints. Okay, I call them the elk finding features. The benches, the meadows, the things like that. The locations that I want to check out when I get there that I think will hold elk. That's what I call an elk finding feature. The benches, the flat bottom drainages. We're looking for sign. We're looking for rubs.
I'm not going to dig into that stuff right now because I feel like those things, you can find that information really easily. That's right. Something that's easy to Google search. So y'all, we're not going to get into those specific features in this podcast. You can Google that's very easy to Google. You can find that in a million places. You can get in that in the course.
But so anyway, so you got all your elk finding features, and you're putting your objectives per morning, noon, night. And it's kind of your guiding light, and you can be as detailed as it kind of depends on your personality. I know guys that just kind of cliff note it. I know guys that write dissertations practically. It's what you are like. And all I'm doing in the course with the hunt plan is I do have a template, my template, that you can download and use. You're welcome. It's in the course. Or you can modify, it's in Word. You can change it. You can download it. Just the point is to develop a plan. And I don't even care if you ever pull it out. It's the process. You know what they always say? If you write something down, you remember it about your... And the process of preparing it, man, you're ready to go. You're like totally, you got all your hunt areas. You got your main one really worked out. You've got a couple backups. And then I talk about how to structure your backups too. Like not just different hunt areas, but there's a method to that too. Like I always have a base camp option. Remember we talked about those guys that tried to peck and couldn't?
Yep.
Even me. Like let's say I get an injury or I twisted my ankle. I will always have an area real quickly. I may not spend a ton of time on it, but I will always have an area that I can base hunt out of a vehicle if I need to. I may not ever use it, but I got it. And then the other thing I almost always do now, because I got hosed on this one year, I always have a radical change in elevation plan. If a snow event comes, that happened to me. I had 5 hunt areas, beautiful hunt areas. Unfortunately, they were all at the same elevation. So when September 15th came, we had 20 inches of snow. Bulls stopped bugling, everything. They were still there, but they just were being difficult. So we had to make a change. Well, damn it. All my hunt areas were at the same damn elevation. So I learned my lesson about that. So I always have one of those is a radical change in elevation. The other reason to have a radical change in elevation is food sources. High country, elk like it high unless it's dry. They will follow the green food down. Colorado is the worst state for this, okay? I've hunted most of my years in Colorado. Those elk can be everyone knows they can be 13,000 feet, but they can also be at 5. That's what the bad part about Colorado is. I think one of the reasons Colorado has so many dang elk and so many dang hunters is they're very adapted to changing elevations based on the food sources. And sometimes that's hard to pick up. You can look at moisture content on weather channels and all kinds of things to get an idea. But when you get there and the 11,000 feet, it looks like it's a dried up hayfield and you're not finding elk sign, I will not spend a lot of time there. I will pack my butt up and move down 2,000 feet or drive the roads, and I will glass, but I'm not glassing for elk. I'm glassing for green. I'm seeing what elevation is it starting to, and it may be dry. I mean, it just depends on the state. I know this is not a perfect science, but I think you're getting my point.
Oh, yeah.
Is work that angle. And, but that's not something you hear people talk about very much. They're just like, we're going to 13,000 feet. That's where the elk are in Colorado, which I agree if the conditions and the moisture and everything is right. But I've also been at 12,000 feet and nothing. It's crickets up there. And I couldn't believe they're down in the scrub brush and the scrub oak and the sage and down in those lower elevations. So, you know, you got to be ready to adapt. So some states like Colorado, I definitely would always have a elevation change in my plan. That was a long-winded answer to your question, but did that kind of do it?
No, absolutely. And it tells you, you know, I mean, you know, of course there's going to be variety in what works for you won't necessarily work for me, won't work for them, and you're going to want to adapt this so it's most functional for you, how you process information. But no, I mean, that's fantastic because, so often I think back to our Colorado hunt where we got in there and a lot of what we did was got in and we're like, well, okay, what are we going to do today? Well, do we want to go sit that water?
Yeah.
Well, or no, should we be getting up higher? Or do we want to go check out that slide over here? You know, and we
kind of hashing it out on site.
Yeah, and it just wasn't.
And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of days that's perfectly fine. But where this written really pays off is when stuff's not happening.
Well, and that was the problem.
Yeah,
we weren't seeing action.
Yeah,
and we went in, and part of the issue was we went in because last year it was a war zone. Apparently, like he's like, I thought it was a bunch of elk hunters in there. He's like, but there was no one.
Oh, it was Bugle Fest.
It was just an absolute.
Do you think that was a moisture food content issue, or what?
And that was so not this last season, but the season before in Colorado. And Colorado was really weird that year. The weather was strange, and it was like super super dry, and it was just, and then it was switching, and I mean. That was a rough year, and from what I heard from everyone. But we got in and we just expected to get in there and have it just be like, rah, you know, the whole time. But
it wasn't.
We saw a couple of cows, and we saw those cows, and we're like, okay, sweet, this is where they're going to be. We got in. We did not hear a single bugle that entire time. We debate if maybe we heard one.
But at that point, you're probably imagining.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
No, we were like, oh, please let it.
Let it happen. Please let it happen.
I think the whole time we saw 3 cows total, and it's just nothing was happening. And so, and of course, you know, you're getting dejected.
It's tough.
And then it gets real easy to be like, you know what?
Let's just call it early.
I'm just gonna stay in the tent today. I'm just gonna crash and rest. Versus, like you said, you have that written hunt plan. You can look at that, and you have options. And there's a motivation.
There's a reason you picked those spots. You were having a beer, or whatever. I would have a beer.
Yeah.
You're relaxing. You're in the air conditioning of your house or heat, wherever you're at. You got your I got a 4 27-inch monitor set up for my e-scouting. I'm kicked back, and I'm really analyzing it. The point I'm over dramatizing this, but there was a reason you selected to drop that pin there. And don't ignore it when you're in the field, just because things aren't happening. You haven't been there yet or whatever. You know, and you've kind of organized this. There's plenty of room to ad lib. There's plenty of room to get off the reservation. You don't have to stay in your lane. That's not what I'm saying. You never want to have a scripted minute-by-minute hunt plan. That is not the point of this. Almost, I don't know if you caught on to this, but really almost the most part of this is you're continually developing that historical knowledge, or you're learning the area before you're even there. And then when you're there and you're talking and whatever, you start saying, well, this ridge or that ridge, you're almost like you've been there because you've just been studying it. But a lot of guys will be like, oh, this looks like a great spot. Okay, that's good. That's a good spot. We're going to go in here. And they got a couple waypoints. They just roll in there. I'd be embarrassed to probably show you my Gaia or Onyx for like a couple of how many points. It's almost overwhelming. That's another reason that if you are one of those guys that drop a lot of points, kind of like me, random stuff, having that hunt plan kind of lets you sort out the raft, your critical points.
It gets rid of the noise.
Well, and we haven't even talked about this. So another module in the course real quick, This is probably a good time to interject this. I've never said this on another podcast because it never came up, but one of the modules that I have is a custom markup module. One of the things I learned a long time ago was I drop random pins in Gaia, Onyx, Google Earth, whatever, just random pins. What I always do, like religion, I will drop, an Onyx is a red pin.
Yeah.
Okay. The red means unassociated random to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Just something that I saw, I'm interested in. I'm not invested in it. There's just some reason that I dropped it. But then when I'm working on developing my hunt area, if that is a bench that I really like, I will label it with an icon that I've designated or a color. For the different elk fighting. I kind of have a system for all the elk fighting features, but then I have one more level. I have a prime and a secondary level. So if I have a feature that is overwhelmingly exciting to me, like I found a beautiful north slope with this beautiful bench 3/4 of the way up, and it's just beautiful. I put a star on it. Of course, I mean, why wouldn't you pick a star?
Yeah.
So you got the star, okay? That's not so big a deal. And then all of a sudden you're over here and you get another star. And then you like, oh, this is really good. I'm going to mark that. Then when you step back and look at it, you're not looking at a bunch of red. Now, Onyx, I don't know if they have a star. You have to just decide your own system. But my point is you've got one icon that you don't use except for prime spots. And then you've got this spot over here that has 5 prime spots. Well, don't ignore that. Okay, and then you got this spot over here that has none. But it's got a lot of red dots, but you really don't like anything that much. Doesn't mean you won't go there. Just may mean you go here first. So I spend a lot of time in the course, or the whole module almost, talking about how to set up your custom markup system and how to approach it. From colors to icons, how to translate them, how to transport them and import them and export them from the various from the various platforms, because you probably know this.
That's huge. Yeah, that is a disaster. It can be.
Well, when you take data out of one system and put it into the other, it defaults to the default icon, right? So if I did all my e-scouting work in Google Earth,
oh yeah,
and then I exported it and put it into Onyx, which I do, it's all red dots. So you don't do the custom markup work, okay, until you're in your final platform, whatever you're going to use in the field, as your main. So that brings up another one. So I have a main system that I use for every hunt. And I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers here, but if I'm hunting western or eastern Montana on an antelope hunt and private land is my gig, like I'm really concerned about that. That's an important part because you're working BMAs and, whatever, private land issues. I'm always Onyx as my number one platform. If I'm hunting elk away from private land, I'm in a wilderness. I'm normally that's where I like to go. Gaia is my number one because I like the pure USGS topographic view. I like the green and white topographic.
Okay.
I do not like the hybrid of Onyx for most things. But that's my point. It's like having a tool. If you're a carpenter, do you build a house with a hammer? No, but you need a hammer. I always, on every single trip, I have Onyx fully downloaded, fully offline, fully tested, all of my waypoints for all of my hunt areas. Now, I won't go through, I will say, I will not go through and change the icons, okay, for my backup system. Only my primary, because it just takes too much time.
Yeah.
But I've got Gaia, the full set of data, the full line, and I will constantly during the hunt be switching back and forth. And just because Onyx does some really amazing stuff, and Gaia does some really amazing stuff. And they do some things very similar, but there are some very, very, and we go over a lot of these, but good things about Onyx that I'd love. Private land, they kill. Let's just be honest. And Gaia does some amazing things when you're talking about topographic layers. They've got 20 layers, 30 layers that you can use offline. Onyx has 3, hybrid, aerial, topo. So using the right tool for the job.
Here's the thing, you going further with your metaphor, okay, do you use a hammer to build the entirety of a house? No, but you use a hammer, but you don't just use one hammer.
Right.
You'll use like a roofing hammer. You'll use a smaller one. You'll use like 3 or 4. You're building an entire house. You'll use 3 or 4 different hammers. So, you look at these tools. They're all very similar tools, but they have slightly different benefits and
You're
little
right. And so what I'm starting to see the trend now is all the guys I talk to about e-scouting. I'll use OnX. Okay, good. Desktop version. Great. Do you use Google Earth? No. I like all the things I like the fire layers. I like all the stuff that OnX has. I'm like, yeah, but you realize you can't do 360 tilt. You can't zoom in near the level of Google Earth. And one big thing is most people don't realize one of the biggest modules in the course is Google Earth. I'm a huge Google Earth guy. And most people don't realize that Google Earth has so many capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been blown away by that. I just thought everybody knew. And I'm like, I'm talking about, when you're looking at topo on Google Earth and you can switch back and look at me like, what do you mean topo on Google Earth? I'm like, yeah, just put the topo layer on.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? They don't even know you can do it. And so EarthPoint is the one I use. There's several, but EarthPoint topo KML file is what I use predominantly. You set up Google Earth with the KML file. Now you've got full topographic maps, USGS 7.5 minute topo maps for the whole United States. Do you use that function on Google Earth?
I've used it before. Yeah. I mean, I am not.
So anyway,
I'm not nearly at the level of e-scouting that you are.
I hope people are paying attention because I know I'm just talking here, but so you can download from EarthPoint. You can download this, do a Google search for EarthPoint, and it's free. There's no cost to any of this. Download the KML file and open it up in Google Earth and put it in your My Places folder, and now you've got instant topographic layer for the entire United States. But it gets even better. So now you got your topographic layer, and then you always have your aerial photo because obviously that's the default for Google Earth. But a lot of people don't even realize this is in Google Earth when you click on that topographic layer, and then there's a transparency button down there. You can slide that transparency on that topographic. Now you got a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Just like on X. You've got a hybrid, and not only is it a hybrid, but it's a controllable hybrid.
Yeah, that's the important part. That's so
it's just what it is. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to bash anything. I'm just being brutal. And that's one of the things about this course. I know we're all over, but it's important stuff. I get no sponsorship, no endorsement, and I refuse it. I do not want it. I want to be able to tell my raw, uninfluenced opinion about all of it. I love OnX. I have great friends that work at OnX. They're based in Missoula, where I'm at. But I love Gaia too. And I'm starting to like Basemap for some things. I can't say enough. I can't say much about Basemap yet because I'm still in the testing phase of that. But I will be having a full module on Basemap coming up. So we're back to Google Earth. So now we've got our topographic layer in Google Earth. And I'm going to go pretty quick here because I know we're running out of time. But I just want people at this point on this podcast, I know you didn't want to get into like the details. They can get the details. Let's just introduce them. So I want to run down a list. And this is probably going to blow some people's minds, to be totally honest. You can download for Google Earth all of the fires for the entire United States in one layer. Not only can you download the fires, but they go back to 1980.
Mm-hmm.
OnX only goes to 2000. That's a big difference. I didn't even realize it until I was doing some work around Yellowstone. I guide in Yellowstone.
Okay.
And I was in OnX. I was planning my routes. I was looking. I'm like, and then for some reason, I pulled up OnX and it looked like a freaking fire zone, but it wasn't labeled as a fire. And that got me looking. And that's how I found that. I did some Google search and did some investigation, found the fire layer. And that's what started. That was years ago. And that kind of centered me on the fact that Google Earth has a lot more capabilities than what comes in the package. So download the fire layer. Now you can get all the motor vehicle use maps for the entire United States in one file. Now, I will recommend, again, I can't get into how to do it, but it's way big file, and Google Earth will crash a lot. But there's a way around it. You can only open the KML file for the area that you want. There's a way to do it. And I go over that in the course. It's really powerful. Like if you're only hunting a few states, don't download Pennsylvania. It's just going to clog up your Google Earth. So you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You got all the motor vehicle use. You got all the motor vehicle trails as well. Motorcycles, ATVs. And what Google Earth has, what this KML file layer has is when you click on it, you know how in OnX you can click on it to get more information about the road?
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the information that's available in this KML file.
Really?
Dates, road type, what kind of gravel is on the road. It's unbelievable. I mean, it is so detailed on those motor vehicle use.
Well, so how many times have you're looking at it on the Google map, you're like, that is a ginormous trail. It looks like I could drive a semi-truck down that thing. And you get up, you can't even see the damn trail on there. Like, that has happened to me a ton of times.
Yeah.
Or you'll be hiking through the woods, you'll be looking at you're looking at your Onyx as you're hiking through. All of a sudden, there's this giant 2-track, and there's no sign of it on there. Like, so,
well, it's the
being
date
able to
of the images.
Exactly, being able to check the information about those roads is huge.
So remember earlier, I know this is kind of deep stuff here, but remember we talked about the zones of pressure, and then remember we talked about downloading the National Forest motor vehicle use map and kind of double checking. Once I'm done with that, I will double check it to my Google Earth, just to make sure. And if I find a discrepancy, I start digging in, figure out who's wrong. Is it the National Forest map? Is it Google? At least it draws my attention to a potential problem. And if I would have, remember the example I gave you about the June and the closure and the September closure?
Yeah.
If I'd have done what I just said, I guarantee I would have caught it. It probably wasn't the same in all of them, but I didn't do it. I got lazy. I got comfortable that I was good with it. So anyway, motor vehicle use. Another one, a big problem in Colorado. Cattle allotments. Grazing.
Huge.
There's a layer for the whole West. Not only cattle allotments, but what type of livestock and the contact information for who's running the livestock. You can call and find out, hey, are you up in this area or are you not? It's incredible. Now that layer I just found about a year ago. That's incredible. Now, not every state does it, so it's not as important in Montana and other states. But, if cattle is an issue, then knowing these allotments, and it's just a layer you turn on and off in Google Earth. The other one is fires, I said, and logging, timber, same thing. Timber areas, now, logging in the United States is a little less than it used to be, but it's got all the logging, and then when you click on it, again, oh man, it's got who's logging, it's got if it's clear cut, it's got if it's fire hazard cut, it's got if it's just thinning, it's got everything about that cut, when it was started, when it was finished, and that helps you analyze, because timber cuts are very difficult in Google Earth. You look at a timber cut, and the image is 2014, it looks like it's wide open, you're going to be able to glass, and you get there, and the shit's grown up 8 feet, and you can't see nothing. Because there's too much. 8 years went by.
Yeah,
you got to understand that. But you never figure that out if you only use OnX. There's no dates to go by. You just, this looks like a big opening. We can glass that. Then you get there, it's grown up because it's a timber cut. But anyway, there's all kinds of these layers that in the course I teach you how to set up your Google Earth for maximum e-scouting capabilities for all these layers that you can turn on and off and on and off and on and off. And then one of the last things is toprut.com. I always mention this because it's an amazing site. They have the ability, you have the ability to go there and download the unit that you want to hunt and the species in one file. Have you ever used it?
No, I've heard of it. I've had people mention it, but I haven't used it personally.
Let's say you're hunting unit 70 in Wyoming. It's a wilderness area, so I'll say that because most non-residents can't hunt it. Download unit 70. It comes with the fire, comes with the roads, comes with the contours, it comes with the wilderness area boundaries, comes with private property, comes with national forest, state land, everything KML for Google Earth.
They just boxed it up.
It's all
really clean for you.
The only thing about it is it's one unit.
Yeah.
Which for a lot of guys, that's all they need. I want the whole state. That's why I use some of the other layers in conjunction with theirs.
Yeah.
But hunting districts is another, not on Google Earth. Okay. There's several sources that you can download all of the hunting district boundaries and put them right in Google Earth. So people tell me, well, Google Earth just doesn't do what OnX does or what Gaia does. It does. You have to set it up.
Yeah.
And if you set your Google Earth up the way I'm kind of portraying and you side by side OnX, you've got a very sophisticated e-scouting system. And you're leaving very little to chance at that point. You're able to look at imageries because Google Earth, you can go back in the historical timeline and look at imagery way back. So you've got that capability with all the same layers of OnX. But then you can jump over to OnX, and OnX, I will give them now I will throw OnX a bone. I've been kind of hard on OnX, but now I'm going to give them some praise. So they sent out a little subtle email about a month ago, said they updated their aerial photo imagery.
Okay.
When I see that kind of stuff, I'm an e-scouting geek, so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if they really did. They did. Their imagery is not every area.
Yeah.
But they've got something different. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm just guessing. But they have not only have they sourced new imagery, but they've done something. They've photo enhanced it as well. So their imagery, I have found so many examples in Google Earth, which used to always be the most current. But now OnX has way better imagery than Google Earth in some cases. Now, in other cases, like I told you, you can't beat Google Earth 2019 files. They've started uploading them just recently. Not every place obviously has it, but any place. I'm so excited when I'm e-scouting an area and I see it's 2019. You wouldn't believe the level of detail. I mean, you can damn near see a squirrel crawling up a tree.
Well, I was going to say my buddy was showing me one time when he was first kind of telling me about e-scouting and giving me kind of the basics. He's like, watch this. He had a couple of spots marked. He's like, watch this. And he scrolled in and you could see the elk tracks going across this bench. It was insane.
Dude, I just e-scouted an area this year that we can't get to. It's too far. 32 miles. And which is almost, you think, well, how can you get 32 miles in the United States? Well, you can in this area. And there was elk in every freaking meadow in Google Earth. I could see the elk 40, 50 in per meadow all the way down this drainage. I'm like, we got to get in there.
Yeah.
And it was taken in July of 2019. The imagery is gold.
Oh, yeah.
I've found so many elk on Google Earth. You'll never find an elk on OnX or Gaia. I'm sorry. They just don't have the resolution in most cases. Now, the new imagery in OnX is getting better. They're getting way better. But again, the only reason I'm pointing out these differences is that, like in the course, if you use the platforms and you learn how to do it, your odds are going up. If you only get one-dimensional, it's fine. You're going to be fine. You can do great e-scouting with just using one, but you are becoming one-dimensional. And one-dimensional in my world is not an odds multiplier. Does that make sense?
You can use one hammer to build a house, but you're going to be a lot more efficient. You're going to have a whole lot better time, and the quality is going to be a lot better.
You're not going to have as many nicks in your trim if you're using if you're using a trim hammer.
Using the framing hammer on your on your floorboards.
I know that's a crude analogy, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And we love. You've been in that room in the summit. We're here at the summit, and the passion for elk hunting in there. Do you want to leave anything to chance? And I think most of it is. I like to believe that a lot of guys now that are even listening to your podcast, their eyes are kind of getting opened up. The fact that it even exists. It's not like they're not doing it by choice. They just nobody's really ever talked about it that much. Like Randy Newberg, he does a great job with a lot of different things, but it's OnX only.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an OnX guy, which I get it. He shows how to look at fires in OnX. He shows how to do timber in OnX. Nobody's showing you how to do it in Google Earth because Google Earth doesn't give a crap about hunting.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making any money. They're not producing videos how to use their program to do hunting.
Yeah.
Now, back in the old days, if you look in YouTube, you'll find some old Google Earth. I've watched them all. E-scouting videos, old school stuff, and they've got some of this stuff in there. But there are so many layers. See, they didn't develop the cattle allotment layer for hunters.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They didn't do that. They didn't develop the fire layer for hunters. They developed for fire people. But we're using it, right? So that's the thing. What I'm trying to say is there's tools out there that are not marketed or promoted or advertised or even educated on as hunting, but they are very applicable to what we're doing. One of the last layers I'm going to tell you about, the gold gem. And Ryan, I blew his mind with this one, Ryan Lampers. He was going bear hunting, and they were worried about the snow. Are they going, because they haven't been there.
Yeah.
They're packing in 30, whatever crazy distance they did. And he was saying, I wonder if there's snow in there yet. I mean, I'm like, what do you mean you wonder? Just look it up on the NORA site, on Google Earth layer. He goes, what? I said, just download the freaking snow depth layer. I thought everybody knew this, but NOAA, and again, I have it's a long link, but anyway, this National Weather Service has it's a KML file, but it's a different KML file. It's called I'm going to script the terminology, but let me just say it in my own words. It's a live connected KML file.
Okay.
Okay. And the live connected ones have the little bar. If you're, you'll have to look this up. Since we're on a podcast, you can't show it, but it's a little bar, a little circle, and it shows that it's getting data, like a spinning wheel kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's how you kind of can recognize a live KML layer versus a static just data set.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you download and install this KML file. Now this, for you gun hunters out here that are listening, this is the tip of all. This is worth the hour and a half you've been listening to this podcast. You download this KML file for snow layer, and you can pull that baby up and look at your spot and see the snow depth live. You can see the snow edge live. You can see all of the anticipated snow forecast. You can see, surface temperature. And I guess I'm assuming I'm not a weatherologist or whatever. I'm not a hydrologist. They must be using some kind of infrared scanning, kind of stuff to come up with this. But anyway, this year, since I was coming out with this e-scouting course, I've always used it, but I never really knew how accurate it was. I said, if I'm going to put this out, I got to test this out. I got to know what I'm dealing with here. So we went bear hunting. I looked up an area where we were going. I looked where the snow line was on this map, on this layer, looked at the depth. We drove up there, and I mean, dude, it was damn near within 100 yards accurate.
Jeez.
In depth, I walked through the snow. It was like, it said 4 to 6 inches. It doesn't say 4.25 inches. Let's just be honest. Yeah. It gives you a range. And I guess this must be based on, and again, I'm not, somebody's going to call you out in my science, but it must be based on surface temperature or something that determines, because as the earth is warming up and the temperature of the snow is changing, maybe fractionally, but it's changing. And that changing must be what determines the snow depth. So it's all color-coded on this layer. I kind of wish we had a visual, but so you've got this snow layer, and it's in shades of blue and white. And the legend is right there.
It's almost like a heat layer kind of a thing.
You know how you'll see, and it's got a legend.
Yeah.
Like if it's dark purple, it's over 5 feet, whatever. So for you gun hunters that are trying to see, can I get to the trailhead? Can I drive my vehicle up there? Am I going to be in waist-deep snow? Mm-hmm. Now, remember, it's a live layer, so it's not going to work in the field, and it's Google Earth. It's not going to work. But right before you go or whatever, you can look at it. The problem with it is it's live, so you can't use it historically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You can't go back and check,
what was the snow depth last year, September? Now, you could probably do that in other places, but not on a Google Earth layer that I've been able to find.
Yeah.
But that live layer, it's even somewhat applicable to archery hunts.
Well, I was going to say, that would have been really nice.
Really high elevation stuff.
For my archery hunts this year because, the snow hit so hard so early here in Montana.
Yeah.
Most of my season, I was trudging through snow. My very first hunt in Idaho, snowstorm blew in out of nowhere, and I could have pulled out. I could have looked at the snow data and found a spot below the snow line to better adjust. Which I should have already had a plan B, but that's going way back.
Well, so for bear hunters, I'm sure there's some bear hunters. It's gold for bear. Because you know how bears, when they come out, they don't get on the snow line. They want to be about a few hundred feet, let's call it 400 to 500, just for generic, to where it starts to turn green. It's not green, right? It's nasty brown for a while, right? But as the snow recedes and the grass starts to grow, those fresh, that's what those bears want.
That's the candy right there.
Man, you can just look at that layer, and you can almost draw a circle. You can take Google Earth, draw a circle, 500 yards elevation down from the snow layer, export that circle, bring it into Onyx, and you've got your bear boundary right there.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even used that technique, but it makes sense to me. I want to know where.
There we go. New revelations on the podcast.
Yeah, right.
There.
I kind of thought of that because that's not been something I've been using for very long. That's another new one. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there's so many tools that not many hunters talk about. Mm-hmm. And I know there's going to be things. So what's great about my course too, I'm tooting my own horn here, and this was an unforeseen benefit. I added a discussion to every module. So every of the 25 modules, let's say you're in, for example, in Google Earth, there's a discussion pane where all the members can ask questions for me. And people can even answer other people's if they want. But this dude got on my site. He's a brand new elk hunter. He's a brand new elk hunter. And he signed up for my course, and he's in there. And he wrote this whole freaking diatribe of how to use these PDFs and link them in. I don't know if we talked about it earlier, but how to use CalTopo, which is another big CalTopo is really, I don't cover it much in the course yet because it gets deep, and I'm kind of going to come back to that as one of the tools. You can get by without CalTopo, but CalTopo has some really incredible stuff. But anyway, you can pin these motor vehicle use PDFs. Remember me talking about it? Mm-hmm. You can pin them. You can import them into CalTopo and pin the lat lawn corners.
Okay.
And have the live, real PDF on top of your overlay. I knew it could be done because I know that's how they do the geotips, the topograph. That's how they put the topographic maps as a layer. They pin them by like some geotip thing. Again, I apologize for my science. I just know it works. But he wrote this how to do the motor vehicle use. If you want, what he was saying, the whole point of it was he loved the zones of pressure with the maps, but he was just saying, now you could do that digitally, and this is how you do it. So all these people in the course got the benefit of this cartologist, this super map genius that just doesn't know how to hunt elk yet. He's in the course to learn how to do, but he provided this great information. So I guess my point is some of the members are starting to contribute to the power of the information in the course.
It's a self-developing course, really.
Kind of, in some ways.
Yeah.
With things like that. Because, I mean, like I said, guys, I don't know everything. I certainly don't. I've been hunting out for 32 years. I'm going to pass my knowledge along. I'm going to give you the best information I can. But there's going to have to be things you're going to work out on your own. But this course is 30 modules. It's 20 hours of video already. I got 5 more to go. It's going to take you a week or 2 to even do the course. And I think you're going to get some knowledge bombs out of it personally, but it's up to you to decide.
All right, so if people want to find the course, where
I
they
want
head
to give you, if you're okay, you can edit this out if you want, but I want to give a promo code. So you'll
absolutely.
be the first one. So I just started a new affiliate program. I'm not going to do any marketing, like paid marketing. I'm going to use my e-count, my podcast friends, and I want them to have their own codes and to give a discount to their guests instead. I just think that's a better way to go.
All right.
So anyway, the course is $119, but the launch price was $79. So I'm meeting everybody. I'm doing $25 off the course for code. What do you like your code to be?
Let's do. I love TWI.
Okay, TWI.
TWI. Yeah.
Is your code.
There we go.
To save $25 on the course, and you can go to treelineacademy.net. That's the course page. Or you can go to treelinepursuits.com and you can get to it from there. But on treelinepursuits.com, I have all my blog articles, all my dehydrated meals, I have a whole thing on dehydration. That's my next course. It'll be coming next year, is going to be dehydrated meals. Nice. Now that I'm really loving doing this, I really have a passion for dehydrating my own meals. And Ryan pushed me into that. And I think Ryan and I, he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to try to get him to team up with me on this course. It's going to be great.
Nice.
And I'm kind of just throwing it out there right now live. And so, but anyway, treelinepursuits.com has got my YouTube stuff for all my other stuff. It's got all my blog articles. It's got a bunch of dehydrated food stuff. It's got a lot of llama stuff, all my llama rentals, my guided trips, and that kind of stuff.
Shame you don't have much going on.
No. I'm a serial, I was talking about this on the Gritty podcast. I'm a serial entrepreneur that just is crazy about elk hunting.
Yeah, we don't know anybody else around here that's like that.
No, this room is full of them. So you feel like some places you feel special, but here you don't. You're just one of many. Well, it's been great meeting you finally. And like I said, Ryan talks really highly of you. So. And he doesn't talk highly of, Ryan just doesn't talk very much, period. But it's been an honor.
Awesome. So, know where to find the course. I'm going to make sure to link to that on the show notes page. Okay. That's going to be on thewildinitiative.com. One thing I always like to close with is, say you run into someone, just wherever it happens to be. They know you're an elk hunter. They know you're passionate about it. It's like, man, or maybe they just came across one of your videos and they're like, gosh, that looks so cool, man. I've always kind of wanted to do hunting, but maybe they're like me. They're from the city. Or maybe they just, whatever it is, they didn't grow up doing it. They don't have any background in it. They're like, man, this is so cool. I've always wanted to do this, but I don't know. There's a lot to learn. It's really intimidating. I don't know if it's for me. What would you tell that person?
Well, I hate to even do this. I'm going to promote some others that I get. I get no benefit from this. Corey Jacobson's Elk 101 class is the best. I don't even want to say beginner because it's not just for beginners. The best, most comprehensive,
soup to nuts, like start
beginning
to finish.
End, how to skin, how to do everything. My course is hardcore, only e-scouting and hunt planning. That's it. I'm going to try to show you everything I know about how to find elk. He shows you everything he knows on how to hunt elk. There's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about all aspects, even some e-scouting. You can compare some of his e-scouting work even to mine. I think you'll see some similarities. But there's a few resources. I would go to Elk 101 for sure. I would say for 90. Well, you can always get a discount code. It's whatever. There's plenty of them available. He does a masterful job. I'm from Missouri. I have a lot of friends from Missouri that now think that I'm their personal guide in Montana. But I make them all take this course. It's a requirement. If they're going to come hunt with me, they do not until they take it. Because, one, they need to know what they're doing on some level. And I'm not going to hold their hand on everything. But I have friends that never hunted, never even shot a bow, and took his course, got a bow, learned how to, and did great. Didn't kill an elk, got close, and had the time, and now they're hooked.
Oh, yeah.
From that course. So that's number one. Number two is Randy Newberg. I can't say enough about him. I know I was making fun of the OnX thing, but dude, his late season elk, his specific e-scouting things that are very targeted, like fires, watch everything that he does on all those. They mimic. The other thing he does a great job at is the basic needs of elk, understanding what elk eat, when they eat it, why they eat it. He does a great, I have a whole module on that in the course too, but he does a really great job on that. You can't hunt animals that you don't understand. You heard Dan Staten from Elk Shape say that in his presentation. He couldn't have said it better. You can't hunt a critter very effectively. Again, it's an odds multiplier. Is it the end all that you know what they eat in September? No. But is it incredibly helpful? Yes. And so understanding that, Randy's another really good one about that. And if you're looking to try to get tags, it's a complicated, it's like a whole degree. Let's just be honest nowadays. Trying to figure out how it works, how it doesn't work, all this stuff. GoHunt.com is great.
God bless it.
And there's a new one out there, and I don't want to riff anybody, but Eastman's got one. They just called me this week and did a demo with me over the phone. I was a little blown away. They need to change. There's a few tweaks need to be made. It's called Tag Hub. It's out live, but they're constantly, kind of in the process. So Tag Hub, Go Hunt, and then if you really want just raw research data and it doesn't cost very much and it's worth every penny, is toprut.com. So their KML files, remember we were talking about, are free. But they have a whole research site of part of their site where you can look up states and units and districts and hunting success and how many points and all the stuff for $19 a year for every state. So it's a great resource. So those, and then the other one, the last one I'll tell you, is Corey Jacobson and Randy Newberg together and individually do a lot of strategies, tag drawing strategies for the Western states. Excellent resources. You watch those videos and you're going to have a good understanding of how New Mexico works or how whatever state, Idaho works. I'm going to tell one last story before we go about it. You mentioned about beginners. And I'm not telling this story to tell you how dedicated I am to DIY public land, beginner level elk hunters. I'm just telling you how much passion I have for elk hunting. I showed up at this trailhead. This was 3 years ago. I had just started Treeline. I wasn't even hardly doing much. A few videos, a few things, whatever. Pulled up. My llamas are always the center of attention anywhere. I pulled up, I have my llamas, unload my llamas, and these two dudes are over in their car. We're both at the trail at the same time. Who cares? It's a big trailhead. I knew I could outwalk them with my llamas. I mean, come on. So they're sitting, but they kept looking over at me, kind of, I thought they were just looking at the llamas. So finally they got up enough courage. They came over, and they're like, "Are you Treeline Pursuits?" I'm like, "Man, I'm famous now." So anyway, man, we watched your video. That's great. And I said, "Yeah, thanks, man." Well, man, we don't want to be in your spot. No, dude, I haven't even hunted this area yet. This is brand new, like most of my areas. I said, where you guys, I said, just so we don't, we're kind of going the same way. And I said, well, why don't you guys, if you want, you just hike in with me and then we'll whatever. So we're hiking in and talking. We dang near killed a bear on the way in. Huh. We get to where I was going to camp the first night because I was going to check out this area really close. And I don't even know if it's where I was going to. It didn't matter. What I said was, hey, if you guys want to camp with me tonight, I'm solo. You can go do your own thing. Oh, man, that'd be great. So they were sitting around that night, and they're talking. They've been hunting. They had never killed an elk. I started finding more about their story, and I said, I'm not an expert caller. I said, but I did win the Cabela's calling contest a couple weeks ago. And I said, I'll call for you guys in the morning if you want. I'm no hurry. I'm out here for whatever. Man, so we got up in the morning, started down the trail. Dude, we didn't even make it 100 yards. This bull bugles. And we're like, oh, cool. And these guys are like, their eyes are like, huge. I'm like, okay. And then my typical self, I kind of took charge, maybe too much. I'm like, you got to get here. You got to get here. I'm going to back up. So we called the bull right in, and they no shots. The bull just never gave him anything really good. But he was all over him. I mean, he was walking all around. Finally, he just didn't like it. He heard elk but wasn't seeing elk. So he retreats. So we hook up. I'm like, oh, what's going on? He goes, oh, man, he just was right down. They were so excited. And I'm like, he's still here. I said, let's slip down. Let's make another call from about a quarter mile away so maybe he thinks it's another elk. So we ran down the trail, get down there, make another call. Boom, he bugles again. So here he comes to another meadow. Comes down, and he is parading in front of this dude. I could see him out there, but he's way out there. And so I'm like, I gotta move back. I'm way back. I'm like 60 yards behind him, but I'm like, I gotta go way back. So I packed my shit up. I ran back in the timber, maybe another 40 or 50 yards. I'm probably over 100 yards from him. And I bugle, and I hear him bugle, and then I bugle, and he's bugling close. And then I thought I heard something, and nothing. It was dead silent. I bugle, nothing. Bugle, nothing. Bugle, nothing. And called, did the whole sequence, nothing. So I'm like, okay. So I started sneaking up there, and these two dudes are standing out in the field, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk out there, dead elk. Dude killed the elk. So met these dudes in the parking lot. They never had killed an elk. Called an elk, and the dude killed it. It was a nice elk. He was so excited. And then I helped him butcher it, and then I did the ultimate. I hadn't had my llamas all that long. Why don't you guys take my llamas, pack them each to your truck, and bring my llamas back? I can't believe I said that. And they did, and we've been friends ever since. So it was a good story.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Yeah. This is absolutely fantastic. I know people are going to lose their minds over this podcast and the information, and I hope they will all take the time to sign up for your course, check that out. But thank you again for taking the time.
Thanks, man. Sam. Good meeting you, brother.
You as well. All right, y'all, that'll do it for this episode of The Wild Initiative. Make sure to check out the show notes page at thewildinitiative.com. Get links to everything we talked about in today's episode. That'll do it for this week. See you next time. But until then, I hope this podcast inspired you to get involved, get outdoors, and plan your initiative for the wild.
Thank you for listening to The Wild Initiative. Please take a moment to leave a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher, and head on over to thewildinitiative.com to get show notes, check out the blog, gear discounts, other podcasts from the Wild Initiative family, and more.